Yo, okay. Yo, yo, he's updating. Oh no, wait, no, wait, no, wait, no, wait. Okay. Yo, chicken. Let's go. Yo, no way. Okay, shop. Not buying anything. Oh, that's just sad. That is just sad. Yo. Why do we have so much crown coins? Wait, why do we have so much crown coins? Wait, why? Oh. Yo. We're lucky. Oh my goodness. Yo, no way. This update. Oh my goodness. No way. We have chicken in here. We have Nightshade, which is the admin. Dude, we have like everyone. Yo, I'm pretty sure the commissioner is in here soon. I think she's gonna join. Yeah. Honestly, this is such a cool update. Oh my goodness. Bet. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Wait. Who? As I said poo. Mm. But as I said poo, I got the crown. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Check random coins. No, not she's left. No, chicken left. Chicken left. No. Chicken little left. Okay, I'm grinding coins right now. Yo, wait. Dude, it's a subscription passes 2 times ground. Bye. Bruh. This is what I mean. This is what I mean. Sorry for the vacuum in the distance. Um, the limited purchase. Oh, Maxwell! No way! We have the Maxwell. Oh. I don't have that. Unlock. that. Puts us in everything. We're going broke. Yo. I'm going broke after this update. Okay, let's check Discord once again. God. Mom's coming back again. Okay, well. I have literally like almost every single crown. I don't have this. So I don't have 1, 2. Oh, okay. Yeah. That is why. Chicken didn't. Didn't really think about that. Didn't really think about that. Nah. No! 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 Why? Why? Why, brother? Oh, no! No, not again! Chicken. Not again. Not again. Not again. Bruh. Wait, chicken. Oh my goodness. No, not again! No, stop! I hate this. Oh my goodness. Stop. Bro, stop nuking everyone. Stop nuking anyone. Just stop nuking everyone. Y'all hate it. Is this Hydro? I thought that was Hydro.
Okay, guys, I'm back. Hello, I'm back. Yo, Nightshade, you lucky, bro. You fisting the button.
Oh.
Yo, Night Shift, I talked to you. Yo, what happened? You ain't gonna friend me, right? You're not gonna friend me, right? All right.
Nah, you might be going into the L zone.
Yo, why you look so funny, chicken?
Not everyone can
Well, I
run
just
into me.
realized his hair is
It's
showing
only
out of
3
his
people.
chicken head.
Kaido doesn't even have a 19. A 19.
Mm-hmm. Wait, do his eyes look scary? No, do not. It's so pretty. It's pretty like a princess. I'm coming home. Give it a chicken. Give it a chicken. Hold on. Chicken, Nightshade. Nightshade, get it. Run. Bro, run. Chicken, no. Get your butt back from off the floor. I've been telling you this. Oh my god. You act like I fit everything on my bed, bro. You don't have to. Oh my god. You can put it on the door.
둥글게 둥글게 빙글빙글 돌아가며 춤을 춥시다. 손뼉을 치면서 노래를 부르며 랄라랄라 즐겁게 춤추자. 링가링가링가링 링가링가링가링가링가링가링 손에 손을 잡고 무릎 뜨겁게 뛰어봅시다. 둥글게 빙글빙글 돌아가며 춤을 춥시다. 손뼉을 치면서 노래를 부르며 랄라랄라 즐겁게 춤추자.
And the admin panel. And admin panel.
update got reverted because there was too many bugs with it. The nuke was kicking out people, and the anti-cheat was getting them because it was too good. So right now, Chicken's fixing the nuke, and there's another bug where if you leave the game after buying crowns with the crown coins, it will lock the crowns that you bought. And there's another one with the diamond crown where it's still locked after getting the badge, the 5K crown, the time badge. It's also locked. So right now, Chicken's fixing all the bugs that's happening, mainly the nuke
All the bugs, all the bugs, all the bugs.
and the crowns, I guess.
Yeah, I know you can help me.
Wakey, wakey.
Oh,
wakey,
sunset? I
wakey.
don't know, bruh. Been 100 book bag.
Dude, get yo. Who's doing that? Who attacking?
Stop.
No, you can't have. You speed me normal. Hold up, dude. Really?
Girl, you're mad.
Screenshotted.
Um,
Why is bro doing that when the owner is here? Also, who
my
said that?
goodness. God. Nah, man.
That's huh? Do what? What are you doing? You're not an admin.
He's not on the floor.
My birthday, you ain't
P band? What is P band?
P band is a permanent band.
Yeah, I knew that. I totally knew that. Okay, I totally
Bro,
You didn't know that.
knew.
Name, so he's gonna get banned by Chicken if he does that. Yeah, I got you. Imagine Mikey, imagine getting VP banned. You're not an admin, bro. He's not an admin.
No. Wait, is this Chicken's house?
Who are you then? Chicken? Someone check the group. Someone check the group right now. Suntar. Or Suntan. Check the group. Check the group for his name.
I'm on another computer that can't go on groups, so
You're on computer. You can't go on.
laggy, but it's better. So yeah, I can't.
That sucks. I thought you're on PC,
Sorry.
so you can actually like switch to the tabs and.
Honestly, I want this guy to get banned.
Yo, is this chicken?
I know a place where the grass is really greener, warm, wet and wild. There must be something in the water. Sipping gin and juice, laying underneath the palm trees. And the birds break their necks, trying to creep a little sneak peek. You could travel the world, but nothing comes close to the Golden Coast. Once you party with us, you'll be falling in love. California girls were unforgettable. Daisy Dukes, bikinis on top. Sun-kissed skin so hot, will melt your popsicle. California girls were undeniable. Fine, fresh beers, we got it on lock. West Coast represent, now put your hands up.
Wow, you don't know it's Maryland. It's history. You don't know history about Fort McHenry?
I did not even learn that.
Wow. You don't even know Fort McHenry? How?
Because they don't want to learn.
It's literally the one of the forts that had our independence. It's one of the forts that made the Star Spangled Banner. It was in the song. How?
Why are you yapping?
If it's in the Star Spangled Banner song, you should know that Fort McHenry is in Maryland. It's history. I've learned about it. How have you not? Oh gosh. Bro, bro's actually the Flash. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's check the Discord. Hold up. Testing 2 7. Oh, there's 7 active. Nightshade, 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 Nightshade. Oh.
Yo, chicken, you did the thing. You already.
Okay, let's see if I have it again. It's 1. Open watch on TikTok. Okay, I'm in. No! Why? No, please no. Really? Oh my. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, I got kicked. Goodness, I got kicked. I'm gonna get kicked. Oh my goodness. Okay, I got kicked again. Ugh. I can't believe this. Fucking Discord. I'm getting mad when I joined. God, please no. Finally!
You said infinite confidence, but who is that? Like, he told me he was working with you. He was working with you in Roblox Studio. Do you have anybody else working with you? And that person is a hacker. You have to friend them. The bacon user, he said that's an alt account, but he said he knows you. Okay, you gotta tell me, like, so I can ban that person who's like acting on my phone. Oh yeah, he's spent 450. No one else works it. Then I'll ban anybody who says he's. That bacon was I thought it was 450. Can I have infinite crown coins, please? You didn't add the nuke button. You didn't add the nuke button. Can I have infinite, please? Also give hydro. Oh, that's cool. So 350. How much content? Oh, me? I have 49,000. Oh, just 3K. So if you had a lot of time on your CPU account or whatever, you will get like kind of close to amounts. Like I have 50K or something. You have 10,000 content? 10,000 pounds? Oh, if you have 10,000 time, you should probably add maybe like probably 5K. Right? Suntan. You spent 350 Robux on the coins. I don't see anything. Labor update. You spent 350 Robux. You spent all your coins on nudes before. Oh, it's 1,000, I think. No, he changed it up to 500. Chicken. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. What's up? Dragon can speak, Suntan can speak, Chicken can speak. Nah, I'm him. Don't look at that. Definitely 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 don't. him. Oh. I don't know, man. Who do you think I am? What does it have with that? Finally. And does the new button come with that? Does the new button come with that update? Somebody does. Or the full menu, whatever, somebody does. Crossroads gang. Hey, we should have had a timer. It's not really HD admin, bro. Leo! Yep. Bro has here. He changes. He's gonna be first on the leaderboard. I didn't know what. I don't see it. My thing did an update. Okay, it's comp time change back. He's back.
Why do you? I've been recording for an hour. Oh my god. I've literally been recording for an hour.
Oh my god! Oh my god! What about me? What about Hydro? Hydro's actually mad chilling right now. He isn't even doing much. He's just mad chilling.
Where's Hydra?
Where's
Wait, where is Tiger?
Where? He's up there. Where's you? Why did he leave? It's supposed to be a family reunion, my guy. Everybody's supposed to be here chilling, matching.
This audio.
What's on time?
What?
Oh no! Okay, don't listen to the background noise. Shut
What is
up!
happening?
Don't worry about
Is
that.
World War
But-
III going on in your background or what?
I'm not gonna add you, bro. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna add you every game. But is my mic echoing or glitchy at all?
Nah, not really.
It sounds smooth.
And like, what is happening in that background? Is there World War III going on?
So imagine two siblings doing some random noises. That's what they're doing.
It's a sibling war. I have
You.
siblings and they always fight too.
You. Who is you? Yeah, I have siblings in the background. Don't worry about them. We're about like the only 3 people with voice chat.
Honestly. Wait, there's
Honestly.
1, 2, 3. Yeah,
That's us.
this way.
Who is you, cuh?
Yeah, no one else has voice chat besides Chicken.
Yeah. Oh, someone else joined with me voice chat. I know. It's Mikey.
Mikey. Wait, who's Mikey?
Mike. It's Dano from Discord.
Then,
That's what Mikey is. Who? Someone joined. I think.
who?
At members. He posted that an hour ago.
Where?
Kicks people fixed. 5,000 crown fix. Working on it. No, my. Oh.
What do you mean? What?
Oh,
What does he mean?
huh?
In general chat, what does he mean? What does he mean?
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
What do you say?
Yeah, in general chat.
Come here. Let me come here. Hydro.
Gosh.
No, you didn't.
Oh, he's on the leaderboard. He's first. Bro's actually first.
Speak, chicken. Say hello or something. Yeah, he is.
Chicken voice reveal before GTA 5. I mean 6. Wow.
He has 1 in time now. It shows on the leaderboard.
You was on
It shows on the leaderboard. Now he actually updated. Oh, cool. Bro's the first to reach the 1 mil.
Oh my goodness. I literally sniped that. I sniped that. No, I'm gonna post
Still no nuke button. Yeah, I'm sad about that.
There's still no nuke button.
It's the nuke button for mods where you could just spam the hell out of it for no reason. Before Chicken had to type in /nuke like that. He would just type that in, but I don't have it. He does. I don't. He does. I don't. And I asked for infinite crown coins so I can spam it when I want, but I don't think that's happening anytime soon.
Tell me why my legs in my torso or apart. I mean, it's not like this is for now.
Nightshade
I mean,
Chicken, what's
FNF.
up, bro? What's up? Chicken?
Oh look, he has a glitch.
Got it
You
right.
should hand me. You
Get it,
should
nice
hand
Give me the crown! Give me the crown! the crown. Give me the crown. Oh, bro, you suck.
No, you can't nuke. No, you can't.
No,
Nuke.
no,
That
no.
don't work for you.
Oh, no.
You're not an admin.
No, no, no.
I'll kick you out.
Yeah, I wish you would.
I would do it right now. How much you want to bet?
Slash nuke right now. Okay, just slash nuke right now. You
I'm
can't.
not
Oh.
slash nuke. I don't. It's gonna coming out. Other update. Next update. I'm gonna probably get the nuke button. Probably.
That's crazy. Next update.
Yeah, it's crazy. And no one else has voice chat. I was server hop, but chicken's in the server.
No, God. I got fleeing. No, not again. Oh my goodness. I'm literally gonna rage quit. I'm rage quitting. I'm rage quitting. I'm rage quitting. No! No! That's why I hate nukes.
Suntan, can you hear me? Please talk to me, boy. Please. This is why I hate nukes. 100%. 100%. You quit.
Keep on getting killed. That's why I hate nukes.
Hey, you see my coded crown? This is my hacker crown right here.
Wow.
W.
Maxwell! Maxwell, let's go! Yo, take a moment. Take a moment. Take a moment to appreciate Maxwell. Okay, take a moment to appreciate Maxwell.
I have all crowns. Oh,
This one Maxwell.
I got the
hates you. Maxwell, take a moment to appreciate it.
no. Get back here, boy.
No! 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 Where did you go? Where did you go? How? How? Hey, you got that open? Yo, I just saw this.
How did you get the crown? I had to repeat myself twice. Slow. I really hate when the song comes back on. I really enjoy my peace and quiet. Huge. 100K. I don't have the master crown. Can you slide? Can you slide the 50K time? I want the master crown. I want the master crown. Okay. Chicken said he temporarily disabled the anti-cheat, so nobody will get kicked.
Thank you. Thank Chicken.
No, don't thank him. He disabled the anti-cheat.
I know, but then I don't get kicked as often. Infinite. Oh no! No! Bruh. No! Bruh! Oh, this is not acting. No! Please stop! Please stop! No one likes them. No one likes them.
What?
11,000 crowns.
Work hard.
I'm under the bridge. Bruh. No. What? What is going on? Okay, Bruh.
What's up?
Honestly, I'm probably gonna take a break from recording. I've been recording for 1 hour and 20 minutes.
What's you gonna go?
Ban him.
What?
Honestly,
Chickens in
at
the
this
game.
point, just ban any hackers. It's too annoying just to kick them.
What gonna go?
Bruh! Oh my goodness. Chicken is in this server! Why are you hacking? Oh my goodness, not again.
You said you open.
Oh my goodness.
Ban him since I want to see. He's literally.
Come.
Okay.
Do you know
What
about
did you
this?
want? This?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What is this? What is it? What is
Put the
this?
secret away.
But what is the point of this?
It's to like run away. Come here. I mean, do you know about the other one up here? What? Come.
What? Wait, what?
Do you know about the one over here?
Yeah.
What's it?
I know.
No, it's right here.
It's in the basement?
Right here. It's over here. It's in the corner. Go in the corner.
Oh.
You know about that?
No, I didn't.
You got it.
Go get chicken then. I'm coming for you, boy. Literally, oh,
The video is slow, bro.
Leo's my friend. I'm not gonna lie. Chicken can do that anytime he wants. He literally just has to teleport to you.
Huh?
Reaper. Come here,
Imagine
boy.
if someone makes a copy
You
of
have
Crown
no
Divers,
check.
but then
What?
it's basically Crown Divers, but you can just fly. So it's basically a fly tag.
I'm good. I don't want some raggedy daggedy clothes. Okay, so what? chase you down. Maxwell and
Pull up.
I thought you had to go in the Skibbity. Skibbity. Skibbity.
Mm. Give me the crown! Give it! Give it! Yo! Maxwell
get it.
crown!
People. This person got the crown sometime.
Mm.
Post this brain rot.
I'm gonna get some food. I'm gonna get some food real quick.
Leo, stop being Snowy Mountains. Let's
Okay.
We're gonna get mad. Anyways, Hydro is a mod, so peace. He can handle others. Yeah, Hydro or Water, I guess. Hydro is his Discord name, but He's a mod if y'all need him. So like just ask him if there's any mod stuff. He has the mod menu. See, look, he teleported.
It's better, yeah. There's a spill from Dominic. Because he's not supposed to be eating or drinking in here. Right, Dominic?
Hold up. some more.